Hey everybody, this is Josh with Homesteading Family, and today we're going to start a batch of elderberry wine. Now, we really love our elderberries. We've got a lot of trees here on the property, and in fact, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, North America, Europe, even Northern Africa, elderberries should be fairly prevalent somewhere around you, and they are a wonderful resource. They're very nutritious, very high in vitamin C, so we make a syrup with them to fight off flus and colds. We make a jam, actually more of a jelly that the kids love. We love with our breakfasts. And a few years ago, we started making elderberry wine. It's a great health tonic. It's great for relaxation at the end of the evenings. Just don't drink too much. And we started this project a few years ago wanting not just to use our elderberries, but to make a wild ferment and give a shot at wild fermenting fruit. Now, if you do a little bit of research about this, you're going to find that anybody that brews or makes wine is going to tell you you cannot produce a consistent product wild fermenting. And I got to tell you, we have just found that not to be true. When I talk to the pros at the local wine shop, they tell me I got lucky. Thing is, I've gotten lucky over and over and over again. So I'm going to show you what we do. This is a relatively simple recipe. Supposedly comes from the Scottish Highlands. And we have taken this and adapted it to what we call a wild ferment because we could not find a recipe that did not include commercial yeast. And we wanted to find out if we could get away from that commercial yeast. We're always trying to get away from industrial products. So this was an experiment a few years ago, which now, several years later, and many, many batches over, we have found that we are able to produce a pretty consistent product that's very good. Yeah, it changes from year to year. You've got drier years, wetter years, the fruit's going to take on different characteristics, but nonetheless, we get a great product every year and we love it. So let's get going, all right? The first thing you're going to need is something to ferment in. We've got an old crock here, and this works great. You could use stainless steel. You could use a glass carboy. You could use a plastic. There's plenty of food-grade plastic fermentation bottles out there, jugs, 5 gallons. We prefer not to use the plastic. This is a great crock. This is perfect for what we're doing. This recipe for the elderberries calls for 11 pounds of elderberries. Now, that seems like a lot, but this is our third batch this year, and we've still got at least one more batch of elderberries, 11 more pounds in the freezer for one more batch of elderberry wine, all from just a few trees right here. So 11 pounds. This is going to make 5 gallons. So no, you don't have to make it this big. We're a large family, so we got to do everything large. But for this recipe, it takes 11 pounds for 5 gallons of elderberry wine. You could just scale that down if you wanted to. Also, 3 pounds to 3.5 pounds of raisins. And I don't have it here today because we're not going to use it, but about 18 cups of sugar and several teaspoons of lemon juice, which we will get to after we get this started. So with your elderberries, you want them destemmed, cleaned up real nicely. You don't want any of that. And we're just going to add this to our crock. Don't want to waste any, so we're going to get as much out of the jar as we can. And yeah, you might be thinking, hey, this is February and where'd you get elderberries? Well, we just put the excess in the freezer. Fall's a busy time. We got to make in a few batches, but didn't have time to finish everything we had. They freeze real well. And then we can just pull them out at a time now. We've got nearly 3 feet of snow on the ground, not doing much outside. And so this is a great time to finish up our elderberry batch. Now, we're going to go ahead and add the raisins. Okay? And then we're going to want to go ahead and add water to this. Now, this is where we start modifying the recipe, okay? The recipe that I have calls for boiled water. The intent of that, I believe, is to kill off all the wild yeasts. But we don't want to do that, right? We're trying to do wild fermentation here. We're not trying, we're doing it. So I have boiled the water just because we are on water from a spring and a cistern. So that doesn't completely sterilize it, but it will clean the water up a bit. So I've boiled it, I've let it cool, and I'm going to go grab that, bring it back, and add it to this mixture. Okay, so we're adding about a gallon of water. Now, we want to go ahead and mash that up and break down the berries and the raisins. Now, you have a lot of wild yeast on these elderberries. In fact, most fruit, if not all fruit, has wild yeast on it. And the raisins add a little bit of sugar. We're going to crank it up in a few days and add a bunch of sugar as well. But the raisins in here will get this ferment started. The elderberries on their own, I haven't tried it, but I suspect that they wouldn't get much of a fermentation going. So we want to just break up the elderberries, break the skins, break the raisins, and I'm going to have to just go at this for a few minutes. So I'll get back to you in just a few. Okay, so we have 11 pounds of elderberries, about 3 pounds of grapes, and 1 gallon of water, and we have really mashed it all up, broken all the holes on the elderberries, and got that mixture going. We're now going to let this sit for 3 or 4 days, but we do want to cover it up. I'm not real worried about sterility and having everything perfectly sterile. Clean, yes, absolutely. You want everything very, very clean, but you can overdo it in sterility, and it's really not necessary to get a consistent product as long as you are clean. So we've got a clean crock. Our water we knew was clean. You could use distilled water if you want to. That's going to certainly add a layer of cleanliness, take out any variabilities there. But hey, we've got these elderberries. They came off our tree. They're natural. We're using the wild yeast and everything that comes with that. And we are getting a consistently good wine, so this is going to work out just fine. But I do want to cover it up. We've got dust in the house. You do have airborne yeast. You've got kids running around. And we want to get this covered and let it sit for that 3 or 4 days to get the fermentation going before we strain it and add the sugars. So we've got a kitchen cloth, just a thin cloth that we'll take, go ahead and drape over the top of this, and what we call kitchen string that comes in for very handy for a lot of different things. And we'll just cover that. That's just going to seal it a little bit. Tie it off. Again, we're not looking for airtight. We're not looking for sterility here. This just helps keep particles and dust out. And because we do have a lot of people running around, this is going to end up in a corner somewhere, but since this is a soft top, I will go ahead. I don't have a lid for this crock, so I'm just going to add from one of our other pots a stainless steel top on here, and that just gives us an added layer of protection. All right, so we're going to let this sit for 3 to 4 days, and when we come back, I'll show you what it looks like, and we'll keep on going. See you then.